Hi, this is Anna Imagination with a Healing Garden. Welcome to Shifting Perspectives. And if you are new to my channel, welcome. I am a philosopher, psychologist, and sociologist of 30 years. So I am, I've got a plethora of topics that I'm like, I got a ball of thread. And I'm going, was this string? And I'm just pulling apart strings today. So, and the big ethical question that I'm stuck on, I've got like three different things that are just raveled in here. And one of them is, the third perspective. That's the third ethic, which is self reliance and asking for help. We're going to cover that one later. Right now, I want to focus on this particular topic, which is problem solving to story sickness, because this is part of it. So, I noticed in working with my clients, my case studies, myself, my own partner, everybody, every time we open our mouths to interact with another person, every time we are all analyzing the behavior of other people, trying to understand it. What do you think that was? Why do they think they did this? Do you know what they did? I can't believe they did this. And we'll analyze it and we'll pull it apart. And it's extraordinary, especially when you go to a mixer where you're supposed to be meeting people in social situations. It's always the retelling of a story of an interaction you had socially with someone else where they're trying to figure out the situation, or they're in awe over it, or they're, wow, this is what this person's behavior was. So in a way, we're all psychologists without having any study of psychology. It's really amusing to me, really funny. So I'm currently looking at this one that I'm going, which is referring to problem solving versus story sickness. So before I continue, I want to kind of elaborate on what story sickness is. Story sickness is a term that I started using to explain the hodgepodge of what human beings do. You see this with assumption making, you see this with exaggeration, you see this with lying. And you see this with something I call improbable fictions, which I will explain here in a minute what that is. Now, I want to say lying is a little bit, that's something different, because lying is 100% I don't feel psychologically safe to tell you the truth. If I tell you the truth, there's going to be consequences and I'm in self preservation mode. So that's really what lying is. It's somebody who has learned that honesty will get you punished. So I kind of want to remove lying from this category. Let's do that. Let's just cross lying right out, because that's really a safety behavior, a safety mechanism, because somebody learned at some point in their life that being honest led to significant physical abuse or mental abuse or abandonment or rejection. The list goes on. Either way, it's not psychologically safe to be honest. So that leaves us with assumptions, exaggeration, and improbable fictions. We see this when we don't understand. We see this when we lack sufficient data. It's like we're trying to create a logical conclusion, but we are missing massive key points to our story. And we can't accept a gap in comprehension. Like we cannot function if there is a gap in understanding. We have to understand. So we fabricate these fictions to fill in the blank. Now, it's not just if it's in the past, if it's in the present, if it's in the present, it's assumption. If it is something that we are assuming in the if it's in the present, if it's a story we are filling in for the present, it's an assumption. If it is a story we are filling in for the past, it's an exaggeration. And if it is a future story, it's an improbable fiction. Improbable fiction is what I refer to as your fear system. It's when, let's say, you have to get this massive project at work done. And if you don't, there's going to be disciplinary action, but you don't know what disciplinary action will be. So our imagination starts to kick in and we start to imagine ourselves getting fired, written up. We imagine ourselves coming home and telling our partner that we just got fired. And then we think about, oh my God, how am I going to pay the rent? How am I going to put food on the table? Do I need to start looking for another job now? And our brains are suddenly more focused on the story, the improbable fiction, than just doing the work in front of us. It's like our minds transported us to the future. It's like a reverse PTSD almost. And I noticed that that's it really, is you have assumption, exaggeration, and improbable fiction. Now, I accumulate all of this into story sickness. It's a really good way to explain somebody who really struggles with elaboration, story elaboration. We're either and it's our way of filling in the blank of those logical gaps so that we can comprehend what's coming, what happened, who we are now. And my question is why? Why are we doing this? This is something I'm working on. Is trying to figure out why human beings are so driven to make sure we know the story. And yes, fear of the unknown is a huge thing, fear of the unknown. The other thing, and this is more this to me is far more logical, is it is an attempt to not disrupt processing. We require data to understand for our cognitive processing for processing perspective. And if you cannot process a perspective, if you cannot process a situation or data or understanding, you get stuck in trauma loops and then it heightens to a trauma because we can't understand. That's when you see obsessive thinking or, oh, it's an R word. What's that R word? It's when you hyper focus on a point. Ruminate. It's when you ruminate. And that is all side effects of story sickness. So it's very much this you're assuming in the present. And you know what? I think it's part of asking questions because when you ask questions, it's not safe to ask questions. And I noticed this is something I recently overcame, I grew up punished if I asked a question. So I wouldn't ask a question, but I would require data. So it was safer to story sickness to assume, exaggerate, or create an improbable fiction rather than just ask a question for clarity. Now, I have with my partner a relationship finally where I can ask him, okay, I'm just going to ask you instead of assume. But for the longest time, I would just assume. It took me a long time to unlearn this, where I could finally just ask him what I needed to. He very beautifully pointed it out to me about 2 weeks ago when I started doing it mindfully, and he said, "It's because you weren't safe to ask questions as a child, correct?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's exactly right." And it's been proven to be very effective in combating story sickness. Now that I'm in a position where I can just ask him without consequence, it's definitely calmed me down. So now I don't associate asking questions with abuse. Now I can just open up and ask him. So I open up, I ask him, and I've noticed that my assumption, my exaggeration, and my probable fictions have significantly decreased. Now, in turn, the story sickness fuels panic. It fuels these massive spiraling episodes where you get carried away with the hypothetical what if rather than staying grounded in the reality because you don't know what the reality is because you have to ask questions. So I think it's like a chained response if you give a mouse a cookie where you weren't it's not safe to ask questions. You have gapped understanding. The subconscious mind has to understand so you don't get caught up in trauma processing. So it fills in the blanks, but it can't ask questions. So we assume, we exaggerate, and we fill in the blanks with improbable fictions because that's safer than having a gap in comprehension. And it's safer than asking questions. So it's as if the processing is compromised, or to prevent the processing from getting compromised, we have story sickness instead. I think that's what it is. That rings true on all my logic buttons, like my logic system is humming right now. So that logically checks out. And now the opposite side of all of this is problem solving, which I noticed all of my clients, everybody, myself included, came into this where I wasn't problem solving. Despite my logical brain, I still wasn't problem solving. So logic does not equate problem solving. This is really important. Problem solving is mindful. You have to be conscious of it. It's the I have a catastrophe or I have a situation, and we're not problem solving, which leads me to the next point of all of this called data analysis. Data analysis is when you have information and you need to process it to determine the best course of action. But we're not doing this. This is interesting. This is really, really fascinating to me. And with one of my case studies, I just went through this where she switched over to story sickness. And I brought her back over to ground her with problem solving, focus on the problem. And so now I'm conditioning her to do data analysis and problem solving. But there's a difference between problem solving, like what's the solution? What is the solution? Versus data analysis. These are two different things. So every time I'm cooking or every time I'm in a car accident, my brain immediately scans what's the solution? I cannot tell you how often I have done this, where I will literally be in the middle of spinning out and I will go, what do I do? What's the solution? And I can feel my brain scanning all of my knowledge base to determine the best course of action, and I don't know it. The other day, like literally this last week, I was cooking. I don't know what happened. Something happened with the cooking where my brain flipped over to, I don't know the solution. And I screamed, what's the solution at the pan? And this is my subconscious mind's instinct. This is immediately where it went to. This was totally automatic. This is my autopilot. Is what's the solution? Where's the obvious conclusion? And I didn't have one. Now that is different. That's problem solving. Let's shelve that. Data analysis is different. This is how it's different. So let's say you have a really miserable job, or you're at a point in your life where you're just not happy. You go in and you do the same habitual behavior every single day, and you get the same mediocre, undesired result every day. That's it. Low or mediocre result with a habit. Oh, we all know this. It's the you wake up, you do your routine, and at the end of the day, you reevaluate your day. There's definitely an evaluation going on where we think, how did my day go? And you're not happy with the results. You know that feeling? Not happy with the results. So you're discouraged the next day. And you might think, you know what, tomorrow's going to be different. And then you do the same thing. You do the same routine. At the end of the day, you evaluate and you have no to low results. And you're not happy. You might do that pep up again of tomorrow's going to be different. And it's not. You do the same routine and you have the same low to mediocre results and you're not happy. Yeah. So I've been there too. I've been there for the last 9 months, 10 months. And I stopped and I went, let's stop and let's just back up for a minute. This is all I did for the last 3 days was I'm doing the same habit. I'm getting the same results. I'm evaluating the same thing. I keep saying I'm not happy, but tomorrow will be different. And then I do the same routine. What the fuck is going on? Why, with my awesome brain, am I doing this? So I stepped back and I analyzed why and how. Because my partner is doing it too. And everyone I talk to is doing it too. And everyone I've spoken to, no matter how intelligent they are, is doing it too. And I went, what the fuck is wrong with us all? That we're all doing this thing. And I love it because there's people who say, well, the best predictor of past behavior or future behavior is past behavior. And I want to go, that's bullshit. Because we're not the same people each and every day. We have more data, but we're not doing anything with the data. We're not doing anything with the data. It just sits there in our data bank. No one is consciously analyzing it. So I'll get to this here in a minute. The second thing of all of this is you get people who are, I love these people, Well, insanity is doing the same thing every day and expecting different results. Thank you. That's very helpful. So, really, why do we do this? And I will tell you why, because of the word habit and routine. It's mindless. We are not consciously aware. This is what happens when our subconscious mind gets caught on a loop. This is it right here. So, you have to basically conduct something called radical change. That's it. You need radical change to completely throw this out the window. You have to get to your breaking point of, I've had enough and I'm sick of this. Now, it always comes back to the big question, yes, but how do I change? To which many people go, I don't know. And so we just keep doing the same thing because we don't know how to change and we don't know. So, this is what I looked into. And this leads me to my next dilemma. How self reliant are we supposed to be? At what point do we start stepping in and asking other people for help? Now, I have another video queued up ready to go where I'm going to talk about nothing but that. But this is really it right here. Because these, like I said, I have a ball and I'm just like pulling apart all the threads. And this is thread number 1. So I'm going to set this ball aside. I'm going to go over to my other video and I'm going to continue this with a different perspective. And then I'm going to jump to the 3rd video and I'm going to talk about that one. And then I'm going to go to the 4th video, talk about that one. And then I'm going to tie them all together because these are all linked. So I will be breaking down the data analysis and moving it forward. But there's a difference between problem solving and what was the word I used? Story sickness and data analysis. These are completely different things. Completely different things. And it lies in the fact that this is a habit, where you have to break the habit with radical change. And to do that, you need to know how to do data analysis when it comes to habitual behavior, which I will be covering in a later video today. So hang on tight. Thank you so much. If you love shit like this, follow, like, subscribe, comment below. Let me know what part of the show resonated with you. And this is a portion of Triadic Healing. If you want to get the full program or learn more, click on the link below. Thank you so much. And may the kindest of words always find you.